Sitting underneath the feet of the Iranian mullahs, untold amounts of black riches they are just waiting to unleash on an unsuspecting world, leading some to rub their hands with glee at the thought of all that new oil being pumped into American cars. Of course, nothing is that simple in the real world. A real world still run by the Fed, that mysterious entity that is doing its best to ensure they don't screw up this time around with your interest rates. Let's get to it where the financial rubber meets the road. He is the veteran economist, University of Maryland professor of business and national columnist, Peter Morici. And he is the veteran economist and author of The American Dream Under Fire, Steve Beaman. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. Peter, I'm going to begin with you. Wait a minute, Peter. We were told there was an awful lot of oil in the world right now. There's a glut. Prices were going down. What is this about Iranian oil flooding the market?
Well, certainly if the Iranians can start selling their oil and getting paid for it, that's the critical thing. That's going to increase the supply and drive down oil prices further. But, you know, it's not just oil in Iran. They've got lots of other stuff. They've got the mineral wealth of Australia, a sophisticated manufacturing sector, a well-educated, Western-educated labor force. They're a mighty power to be reckoned with.
See, Steve, there's the thing when you talk about Iran. Everybody still thinks as though maybe as some old world mullahs sitting there contemplating their navel. But let's be quite honest. That's a very sophisticated group of people there. They're economically sophisticated. And what I think Peter said here is correct. There's more to oil, more than just oil that can come out of Iran and affect the world.
There absolutely is. In fact, people don't realize it, but Iran has a very developed manufacturing sector. They are the third largest cement exporter in the world, larger than the United States. I think they make something like 1.6 million cars a year over there. So they've got an enormous economy. And by shipping out another million barrels at $53 a barrel, they're going to add an awful lot of cash into that economy.
So, Peter, will this all make an impact here in America? Will we feel this maybe in the next 6 months, a year? What do you think?
Well, the next year for sure, with regard to the oil patch, it's going to depress prices further, take gasoline prices down, but it's going to greatly complicate our policy in the Middle East because now we're going to have a sophisticated country that has a lot of wealth that'll not only be able to get into mischief in places like Yemen or Syria, but just simply can do a lot of things that Western countries can do. I see them making cars as sophisticated as South Korea within 10 years, but sooner than that, they will be able to make lots of other things. You're going to have essentially a Western-style economy, you know, inside a clerical state. That is a rather potent brew.
I cannot wait for 50 cents a gallon gasoline. Let's go ahead and turn to the Fed now, which I just can't wait to get to. Now, Steve, here's what I hear. Today there's a story out saying that the Fed cannot afford to make a mistake. Now, here comes a later story from Jeff Gundlach saying, wait a minute, the Fed won't hike. They can't. The figures are all wrong. All right, Steve, start us off. Which one do we believe?
Well, we know that Janet Yellen testified yesterday saying that there is an intention on the part of the Fed to take rates up by the end of the year. I think they need to. We've got to put more value to capital, but they are in a real catch-22. If they take rates up too fast, it'll slow down what is a stagnant economy in the U.S., and we're just now coming out of this Grecian turmoil. China just announced a 7% growth rate, so that's down for them. But I think the Fed is going to have to take rates up, but by a very small amount.
Peter, would you agree that the Fed can't afford to screw up this time around, as some people believe?
Well, yes, and that's why I think we're looking at a rate increase in September and another one in December, that they're going to space these out and move up very slowly. Also, I think the equilibrium interest rate, I've written about this, is not going to be up above 5 like the last time, you know, the peak that the economy can bear, but it's going to be more like 3.5 because capital is just flat out cheaper in the world these days for a variety of reasons.
I got about 90 seconds left, Steve. I'm going to bounce back to you because you mentioned the magic word Greek and Greece. Now, here's word coming out saying that it can't work at all. There's more debt than the EU has offered here. And even you have the Prime Minister saying, I believe nothing short of a revolution is in order now. Do you think that's possible?
I think they'll do everything they can do to stave that off. I think that's why Germany blinked in this last go-round, and I think the global community, the IMF-led community, will do everything it can to make sure Greece gets band-aided for the foreseeable future. But that's what they did under our crash, and I think that's what they'll do there.
Can they, though, Steve? I mean, is this something that they can hold off if the younger people start to revolt?
It's going to be a political challenge for Tsipras to hold on to that, that's for sure. And the Russians are actually getting involved playing some games. So you could see this explode into some really ugliness in Greece. That's bad for the entire EU, as you and I've talked about so many times.
Peter, 30 seconds left. How dangerous is all this then with regard to revolution?
Well, I think it's quite dangerous. This program is going to take the Greek economy down further because the austerity bites before the economic reforms have their positive effect. I think it's more likely that young Greeks will simply leave, and it'll become like southeastern Europe after the fall of the Iron Curtain, where they became largely a space that was occupied by old people. Essentially, Germany has pummeled Greece into the ground and will turn it into a southeastern Europe economy, former Soviet state style.
And finally, what we've all talked about is eventually going to happen no matter what the Greeks try to do, bar none. Peter Morici, Steve Beaman, always a pleasure, gentlemen, to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk money again soon. All right, coming up right here on The Hard Line, telling it like it is. I guarantee you, this is the last word we will ever need to hear. And I hope the last time I will ever have to speak about this, about a piece of multicolored cloth. Let's see if I'm right. We're coming up next, right here on The Hard Line.